Hmm. Interesting. Hey, what's going on? I'm glad that you joined me. Do you want to stick around for a second? I hope you do. Don't go. Don't go. I am playing around with ideas about college costs or costs in general. And yeah, I've been thinking about this a lot of late because there are a couple of factors that a lot of people don't consider when it comes to college affordability and college in general. And I kind of have this semblance of an equation up here, right, wrong, or indifferent. This is just me thinking this out loud. And what you'll see here is that I have return on one side minus the average salary of a high school graduate, and then the cost of college in the denominator there, right? So what I'm playing around with is this idea of what is really the return of investment on a college education. But that is very subjective because the return of investment, and even if you think about this from a business perspective, the return on investment has everything to do with revenue generation, right? At the top end of an income statement. And then managing the costs and overhead and operational costs in the middle income statement, which then works its way down to net profits. Very similar to kind of what's happening here, right? So we have return, meaning that what's going to be the return on the degree that I am acquiring through my college education. And what I found working with students year after year and families year after year, a lot of times they don't even have a clue in terms of what the starting salary is in the area or region in which they live for the degree that they are seeking. So if we're making an investment in education, a life-changing investment, a generational, an investment that's going to have a generational impact on a household for years to come, we need to know what this return is going to be ultimately. Because if we don't have an idea of this return, what I know about humans and human behavior is that we overestimate the benefits of something that we're pursuing. Sometimes by tens, 20 or $30,000, depending on our perspective and information that we receive. So if we're making an investment in our college education, one, we need to understand what's going to be the return. What revenue am I going to generate from said education? Above that of a salary that I could earn if I did not get a college education, right? Because if I'm getting a college education and I'm not getting much of a return in terms of revenue generation or a salary that's all that is that not that much greater than the average salary that I could have gotten just with a high school degree, then we're not really seeing a significant return on our investment. Just right off the top, you can see that. So let's say the average salary, and there's some numbers that are out there. And again, this is average and this is national, but it's around $38,000 a year. If my return for my college education is $40,000, so $40,000 minus $38,000, would it have been worth it to take on student loan debt for literally just say $2,000 bump in salary year after year? Now there are other things that can be considered in terms of the long-term implications we can talk about, but there's a lot of volatility in life. And people don't always stick with the career that they have a degree in, and they find other ways and other avenues, routes. And you can also argue that with a college degree, you have more upward mobility. There are a lot of different things to argue around this in terms of projecting the future, but I don't want to project the future. We didn't even know that the pandemic was going to happen, right? Did we work that into our projections and plans? No. So let's just kind of focus on just right now, right? So return minus average salary or entry-level salary for a start for a career based on the degree that you receive, minus the average salary of a high school graduate, and then the divided by cost of college, which, and the cost of college, generally speaking, is around $33,000 in terms of the debt load on average throughout the nation. So if we have all that information in hand, then what we can do is that we can start to begin to think about Am I actually getting a sufficient return on the investment that I am making in my education to pursue a particular degree that then helps me to achieve all of the goals that I have for this lifetime and for future generations to come? And so this average salary just kind of stays constant, okay? But as it relates to college costs, there are a couple of things that we can control here. In terms of return, we can consider and rethink our degree, right? We can pursue potentially a different degree or a different major that earns more money and thusly increases our annual income, right? Then widens the gap between our entry-level annual income for a degree that earns more in terms of salary, right? And as we widen this gap, then we start to see potentially, right, the benefits of our return on our investment. However, that can be mitigated by our cost of attendance to college. So if we have a really significant return on investment, but then we're taking on a lot of student loan debt to do this, right, this will offset the value of our degree. So another factor in this process is that we now have to consider the cost of attending college. And I just have an average here of $33,000. And the goal here, literally, is to keep our costs as low as we possibly can, all right? And my idea here is that, let's say, and I'm going to be hedging a little bit as I think about this. So let's say that what could I do that can kind of be a fail-proof plan for attending college, but not putting me in a financial position where I'm going to be burdened by debt for years and years to come and not have the discretionary income and capacity, right, to achieve my life's goals and objectives. Right? So what I was thinking here is, let's say if we did this, so I'm going to erase this really quickly if you're okay with that. But a couple of things as we think about college costs, and we need to think about this on the front end and not the back end, because most people don't think about the investment that they're making in college. They don't think about it from a degree perspective. You can actually go to payscale.com and actually you can go onto that site, you can search different degrees, and then what the entry or starting level salary is reasonably to actually get a feel for what you are working towards as it relates to your degree or major. And then also, what I've realized that a lot of people don't think about is the college costs, because we have this fantasy about what we're going to earn. And if we believe psychologically that we're going to earn more or a lot more than what the reality is, then we'll actually take on more debt because we think we have more upside. And you don't just see this with students, you see this with families as well. And a lot of families, and some families, unfortunately, that don't really understand this process. So you can go through this college degree process and do it completely wrong and not get any benefit out of it. And then we have the conversation about whether college is worth it. Well, I want us to step back and not think about it from that perspective. The question should be, is did we adequately plan to make college worth it? Very different conversation, very different question. Because that means we take ownership, we've thought about the return that we're going to get on our degree, we've thought about college costs and where we want to keep college costs, and from semester to semester, both parent and child are working together to make this happen. But what you see oftentimes is that a lot of parents, as soon as their son or daughter goes off to college, they step back and they just let them do them. So there's no accountability. Most households have never had any substantial conversations about money, right? But yet the entire family is hoping that the virtues of a college degree are going to propel them generationally. It's not necessarily the college degree necessarily in terms of graduating from college. It's thinking about the entire it's thinking about all of this in its aggregate, or all of this in total, and think about all these things, how all of these things impact someone as they're navigating this space. So when families aren't paying attention, mom and dads aren't paying attention, son and daughter could be racking up more and more student loan debt because nobody really understands the return of the value of the degree. Then even parents can think, oh, well, the debt can't be that bad. My son or daughter is going to a great institution and it's going to pay off, right? It's all going to work out in the end, right? The institution you go to can definitely have an impact on potential employment opportunities. However, it is the degree, more specifically, the value of that degree in the market in which someone graduates that's going to have the most significant impact, not necessarily the institution, right? So accounting in one place versus accounting in another place is the degree. And then once you have the degree, then you can use that degree to position yourself to earn market rate for that particular degree, okay? So we have to think about return, and then we have to think about cost of college, which is basically the debt load that we're taking on when we go to college, right? So one of the things that I was thinking, I'm gonna erase this really quickly. And again, I'm just thinking out loud here, and this is all about having the conversation, right? And I want to have the conversation with you because nobody thinks about college this way. We just tell our children, you especially first generation college students, and I completely get it, that you're going to college, right? But just going to college isn't the end all be all. You have to create a plan for how you navigate college to get the most out of the experience, right? There's so many different things I can touch on as it relates to that. So this is kind of like my fail-proof plan, so to speak, right? So let's say we are going to say that the average cost for, not the average cost, we're going to say that the average salary of a high school degree, high school diploma is $38,000 a year, right? $38,000 a year, okay? And then let's say that son or daughter goes off to college, they get the degree. They did it because they didn't really know what they wanted to do, but they didn't love it, right? So you go to college, you get the degree, you don't love it. And even though you're making more money initially, you can't stand it and you don't want to stick with it and you would much rather do something else, okay? So then in this particular instance, what we're going to then say is that let's say that we just kind of void this out, that I'm going to a year in, I don't want to be an accountant. A year in, I don't want to be this, or I don't want to be this, or I don't want to do that. So then we're going to say, zero. Because the value of the college degree is based on the degree and the salary that you can command working within that professional space. But if you're not working in that professional space, then you're not going to see that upside on the degree. And let's say that said son or daughter decides to go work somewhere where they're earning basically around annually the same as they would if they were a high school graduate, which is $38,000 a year. And you're sitting there, you're thinking, well, I'm not sure if that was the right decision or whatever it may be. But the whole power of going to college and positioning yourself so that you can have financial independence and freedom is for this very purpose. If you are working in a space or a career that you don't love and you can't leave it, you don't have power. If you can't step away and say that I'm going to take a lesser paying job because of the way that the people are treating me, where they're treating me without dignity and without respect, and it's not good for my mental health and my emotional health, you don't really have power and leverage, right? So the whole point is, how do we make college work? And then if it doesn't work out the way that we want for it to, that we can leave and not be hampered, leave from a particular career and not be hampered for earning less money, right? And that's kind of what I'm getting at here. So if we do that, if I come down here, I've kind of worked out that reasonably, so let's say we got, again, the $38,000 there. And then let's say that I've calculated this, and what did I calculate? I think it was around $20,000 or so.
So I'm going to put $20,000 here in terms of college costs. All right. So in essence, basically, this is going to net to zero. This isn't going to be negative $3,800. We'll just say that this kind of cancels each other out. And then my education costs, let's say if I can keep it around $20,000, maybe a little bit less, right? Because if you have it around here, your monthly payment on your student loan is going to be 0.01% of this, right? So I'll put 0.01, put that down here. So that's going to be $200 a month, roughly, over a standard 10-year repayment plan. And then I'm going to do that times 12. And then that gives us $2,400 a year, roughly, right? So we have $2,400 a year, okay? So if I'm paying $2,400 a year towards a student loan balance over a 10-year period, and all I'm earning now, because I stepped away from this job after the first year, and now I'm working the job that's closer to this $38,000 that was listed here, then that $2,400 as a percent of my $38,000, let's do the math here really quickly. I'm gonna pull out my calculator on my phone. I just think that stuff like this is interesting to play around with and think about. And again, I'm just thinking out loud. So you're just joining me in a thinking session. That's all I'm doing. And if you have thoughts or opinions or whatever it may be, please post that information. So what this would be 6% of my annual salary of $38,000 roughly. Now, the beautiful thing here is that there are individuals right now that are paying 20%, 15%, upwards to 30% in student loan payments as a percentage of their annual income. But what I'm getting at here is that if we can keep the student loan debt balance to $20,000 or less, then that means if all else fails with the career of choice and we earn more of what the average is, or just gonna put it up here, $38,000 a year in terms of average salary, then our student loan payments are only going to be a small fraction of that, which means that we have more discretionary income to invest, to save, to give, to live life, to potentially buy a home, to start a family, because we're not hampered down by student loan debt. And that's in the event that college does not work, right? At least initially. It doesn't mean that you won't find your path and find your lane, and it doesn't mean that your upside isn't going to be much higher because you have your degree and you go into a different field. You might have more opportunities for advancement and mobility, so you might see greater growth on your income over time, right? But what I'm getting at here is that we need to be incredibly strategic on this part right here, which is the college debt number, or $20,000, or what I have calculated here, which is $20,000. Because what that would do is that would keep you between that 6 and 7% range, which is what I like to see as it relates to the annual amount that you're paying on student loan debt as a percentage of your annual income. So the question then becomes, right, if the average student loan debt is around $33,000 a year, right? And we need to get to $20,000 a year. Then what do we do in between, right? So this is the being intentional about applying for scholarships, completing the FAFSA, working internship opportunities, and ensuring that from semester to semester, right? This semester, next semester, and semester after that, you can literally say that my game plan is to graduate, or our game plan is as a family. And I want to say family very specifically here, because what happens is that if a son or daughter drops the ball, who picks it up? Mom. And dad, right? And please forget my stick figures, right? They're going to pick that up. And if they already have student loan debt, and then they're picking up additional debt in the form of Parent Plus loans, right, to help you graduate or to help a son or daughter graduate, and they don't graduate in 4 years, now they're out in 5 and 6 years, what's happening is that the debt, right, for child and for parents goes up and up and up. And if the debt is going up and up and up, and child gets into the workforce and doesn't realize the return on their particular degree, then we're sad, then both parent and child are saddled with debt, right? Which then ultimately lessens the amount that they have in discretionary income. Of course, there are income-based repayment plans and things of that nature, which are incredibly important. That can help create some space here. But if we're thinking about wealth creation and generation and wealth creation generationally, it is not going to happen if both parties here are taking on significant debt to purely just graduate from college, because that is the goal. But the goal is to optimize the degree that you receive as a result of graduating from college and doing it with the least amount of debt possible. Another thing that can be done is that from every semester as a family, you can sit down and talk about, if let's say said son or daughter receives a disbursement check from financial aid, do you need all of the financial aid disbursement check? You can actually sit down and calculate what would be the needs over this particular semester and then send the rest back. Actually, most college students could actually save a considerable amount of money in terms of what they're going to pay in the back end as it relates to college-related debt by not taking and blowing through all of the financial aid disbursement check from semester to semester. Because all you're doing is accumulating deferred debt. And when you accumulate more and more deferred debt, that means if this number creeps up and up and up, then that means your future self is actually losing cash flow based on the decisions that you're making today. Because every semester you take on debt. So let's say you take on $5,000 this semester, all right? And then $5,000 this semester. So every time you do this, then that becomes $50, and then that becomes $50 in terms of future payments, right? So this would be future payments, $50, and then $50 here. And that's just 1 year. So that's $100 that you've already said that I'm going to have to pay in the future on a student loan balance. That's just 1 year. So let's go into the next semester, all right? Do we have another $5,000 and another $5,000 that we take out in student loan balances? And we have another $50 and a $50. So that's another $100 that you're having to pay. So we have a total of $200. And we're only 2 years in. And as you can see, this kind of goes on and on and on. And if somebody doesn't graduate in time, then we're taking us into the 5th year and in the 6th year. And every step of the way in which we're doing this, it's taking away from our future earnings. And that's if we stick with the degree and the career path that we initially set with. So the goal here is to think about this from as a family, especially right now. If you're making decisions to attend college, things of that nature, what I would argue is, could we graduate within 4 years, if we have to, taking on no more than $20,000 in student loan debt? Ideally, I would want that to be much less than that. But this can also be a combination of things. It could mean that even parents can jump in and say that, you know what, we can't pay all of your college expenses, right? But we will contribute enough to get you, said son or daughter, to around this $20,000 mark, because we know that if this is all that you have on a student debt balance, that this is only going to be roughly 6% of your annual income, and that's even if you do not optimize your degree. Now, the beauty here, if you do the $20,000 and you do optimize your degree, then this number becomes less and less and less, which means that you have more discretionary income in the future to live the life that you want and to do the things that you want. All right. So again, this is just me sitting here thinking.
And yeah, you kind of dropped in on me as I'm kind of working through this stuff, because we're having these conversations about potentially erasing student loan debt, $10,000. I think President Biden recently said that he was not for a $50,000 student loan debt reduction, but may entertain a $10,000 student loan debt reduction. But that still doesn't address the front end of this process. This is very back end of this process oriented. And what needs to change is not having the conversation in terms of whether college is worth it or not. There are a lot of amazing, valuable things that are available through the college experience. In fact, if you think about it, if you're doing anything via social media, what is everybody doing? They're selling a course. They're selling a course. And a lot of stuff that these individuals are selling is the same exact types of things that you would learn in college. So it just fascinates me that we knock one institution, but yet we're actually seeing more of these models come out where people are paying for classes and seminars and masterminds. And we're talking about thousands of dollars here just to be able to get ahead. So the institution works. The question, though, is how are we creating a strategy and plan to navigate college, to optimize our earnings through degree choice and selection that's a good fit for said son or daughter, and then also to minimize our debt load through the institution, right? Because if you're just optimizing the degree side, but you're not worried about the debt side, then it doesn't work. But what could happen here is that even if the degree side doesn't work and we minimize our debt position, then we still have the flexibility to pivot into new career choices and still have the cash flow to live life. So as a family, I want to ask this question. I want to encourage you to share this video with others, things of that nature. And I want to be very honest here. Have you thought about college this way? That's my question for you. Have you thought about college in the way that I've just kind of been playing around with as you've kind of dropped in on this video? Because if you haven't, we need to have these conversations. Because otherwise, college is going to be something that becomes bondage for especially Black and brown communities, instead of being this thing that can actually help us position ourselves to create generational wealth. And I'll also add this. If you're in a process, or you know somebody who's in a process and they are about to send their son or daughter off to college, or they're making choices as it relates to different financial aid packages and thinking about cost of attending an institution and all these other different things, I want to encourage you to encourage them or to encourage yourself to work with a financial coach to help you think about the implications of everything that we just talked about, both in the present and in the future, so that you and your family can have a family college plan that actually does the thing and provides some accountability for the thing that ultimately is this return on investment that propels this family so that the next generation can do better than a previous generation. But going to college alone is not enough, all right? So if you're looking for a financial coach or a financial counselor, you can go to afcpe.org to do that. I provide financial coaching services as well. So if you're interested in wanting to reach out to someone to think about this pivotal, monumental decision that wealth or the lack of it is uniquely, in my opinion, associated in this day and time to how we navigate the college experience. Because if we do not do this strategically, we will not receive the full benefit of the college experience that we should. And it's very important that you work with someone to help you think through this, to create a plan, to check in with you, because what is the benefit? The benefit is that you have a son or daughter who is not burdened by debt, whether or not their career choice does or doesn't work. You are not going to have to be burdened by debt as a parent to help your child get through a 5th or 6th year of schooling, right? If that is the case. And then what it does on both sides is because neither of you are saddled by debt, you both have the discretionary income to then use that income to invest in wealth creation type activities. And to be able to start that process sooner than later, because the magic of compound interest is time. So if you lose time, you're missing the boat on compound interest, right? So again, I'm just sitting here, I'm just thinking my thinks and doing my thing and playing around with these ideas. Leave comments, let me know what you think. I'd love to hear from you. I don't think that college necessarily is a broken system per se, but I do think that there is information asymmetry, meaning that families and kids who never have conversation. Think about it. Most kids don't know how to budget. They've never balanced a checkbook. They've never tracked their income and outflows of expenses or whatever it may be. But yet we're handing them the keys and saying, make sound financial decisions while you're in college and don't put yourself in debt. Is it like, what type of world do we live in where we don't prepare our children to actually engage in this process to make wise decisions, and then we get mad on the back end because now we're all settled by debt and it set us back a generation? We have to change the conversation. So again, if you're interested, reach out to me. You can reach out to me through my website, which is Modom, MODOM, solutions.com. And if you're looking for someone to help you think through navigating your college decision and choice, because this is a big decision. This isn't just a son or daughter decision. This isn't just a mom and dad decision. This is a family decision, because how we navigate college impacts the entire family as it relates to wealth creation purposes. That's why this is so important. Your 50 years from now is going to be dictated by the decision that you make right now as it relates to this process. And there's a lot to be said about it, right? Or you can say, hey, I'll forego college and won't take on any debt and do whatever it may be. That could absolutely be what could be optimal for you. And there's nothing wrong with that either. So again, this is me sitting down thinking late at night because I had to get this thought out. And I know I'm all jumbled over here. This is kind of how my brain thinks. Sorry. So when you see these, I'm thinking of things, just know that this is exactly what you're in for as we're having a conversation. So I'd love to hear your thoughts and your ideas or whatever it may be. I don't think that there's a right or wrong way for anything. I just think that as long as we're open-minded and we continue to grow, and we use our greatest resource, which is our human capital and collective human capital, we'll get there. So until next time, as always, you have more power than you think. Own it. Bye.